Commander Vextar stared at the holographic display in disbelief. 3 fleets, 3 of the most advanced military forces in the galaxy, had been destroyed by a species that had only just discovered faster-than-light travel. The blue glow of the tactical screen showed wreckage scattered across 3 different star systems, all bearing the same impossible signature. The bridge of the Helion Empire's flagship buzzed with quiet activity. Officers moved between stations, their scaled hands dancing over control panels that could destroy planets with a thought. Vextar's own claws clicked against the metal railing as he reviewed the reports for the 10th time that cycle. "Commander," his aide approached with careful steps. "The Council is demanding answers." Vextar's 4 eyes focused on the smaller being. "Tell the Council that answers require understanding, and understanding requires investigation." The reports made no sense. The first fleet to encounter these humans had been a standard subjugation force from the Keth Empire. 50 ships armed with plasma cannons and quantum disruptors. They had approached the 3rd planet of a yellow star, expecting the usual quick surrender that came when primitive species saw their technological superiority. Instead, the humans had fought back. The Keth commander's final transmission had been filled with confusion and panic. "They're using some kind of unknown weapon system. Our shields are failing. The projectiles they're just metal. Simple metal moving fast. How is this possible?" Vextar had dismissed it as combat hysteria. The 2nd fleet, sent by the Zephyrin Collective, had been larger and better prepared. 75 ships with the latest shield, technology, and adaptive armor systems. Their fate had been the same. The 3rd fleet had carried observers and recording equipment. The Galactic Council had wanted proof of these mysterious human weapons. What they got instead was footage that defied every principle of modern warfare. On Earth, Admiral Jiwon Park stood in the command center buried deep beneath the Korean mountains. The room hummed with activity as dozens of technicians monitored displays showing the positions of human ships throughout the solar system. The screen showed green dots representing their forces and red markers where alien wreckage drifted in the cold of space. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Hyeji Lee approached the Admiral's station. "Long-range sensors are picking up another fleet. Bigger than the last 3 combined." Jiwon nodded slowly. She had expected this. The aliens would keep coming until they understood what they were facing, or until humanity made them understand. "How long until they reach us?" 6 days at their current speed. Jiwon turned to the man standing beside her. Dr. Minho Kim looked tired, but his eyes still held the spark that had made him humanity's chief weapons engineer. "Are the new installations ready?" Minho adjusted his glasses and checked his tablet. "The orbital platforms are online. The lunar mass drivers are at full capacity, and the asteroid belt miners have been converted to weapons platforms as planned." The plan had been simple in concept, but difficult in execution. When the first alien scout ships had appeared at the edge of the solar system, humanity had realized they were facing technology far beyond their own capabilities. Energy shields that could deflect laser weapons, armor that absorbed plasma blasts, ships that could bend space itself to move faster than light. But humanity had advantages the aliens didn't expect. Earth's long history of warfare had taught them that the most sophisticated weapon wasn't always the most effective one. Sometimes, the simplest solution was the best solution. On the Helion flagship, Vextar reviewed the tactical data from the 3 destroyed fleets. The humans used kinetic weapons, chunks of metal fired at extremely high velocities. The concept was so primitive that most galactic species had abandoned it millions of years ago in favor of energy-based weapons. "Sir," his tactical officer approached, with a data pad. "I've completed the analysis of the human weapon systems." Vextar took the device and read the report. Railguns. Magnetic acceleration systems that could fire metal projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. Mass drivers that could hurl asteroids across space like ancient catapults. Even simple chemical-powered weapons that fired small metal bullets. "This makes no sense," Vextar muttered. "Our shields are designed to deflect energy weapons. Plasma, lasers, particle beams. These metal projectiles should bounce off harmlessly." The tactical officer shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, the battle recordings show otherwise. The projectiles are penetrating our shields and causing massive structural damage." Vextar studied the footage again. Human ships, crude and angular compared, to the elegant curves of galactic vessels, firing streams of metal at alien warships. The projectiles passed through energy shields as if they weren't there, punching holes in armor that should have been impenetrable. Back on Earth, Jiwan stood, in the manufacturing facility where Minho's team had been working around the clock. The cavernous space echoed with the sound of machinery producing ammunition for the coming battle. Simple steel rods, precisely machined to exact specifications. They looked like nothing more than metal bars, but Jiwan knew they were humanity's best hope for survival. "The aliens think we're primitive," Minho said as they walked past the production lines. "They see our weapons and assume we're using outdated technology because we don't know better." "And they're wrong?" Minho smiled. "They're very wrong. We're using these weapons because they work. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways." Jiwan watched as workers loaded the metal projectiles into shipping containers. Each one would be fired, from railguns powerful enough to accelerate them to incredible speeds. The kinetic energy alone would be enough to punch through any known material. "How did you know this would work?" "Basic physics," Minho replied. "Energy shields work by deflecting or absorbing energy-based attacks. But kinetic energy is different. It's not something you can deflect easily. It's pure momentum transfer. When something heavy hits something else at high speed, the laws of physics take over." On the Helion flagship, Vextar was beginning to understand the same principle. He had run computer simulations showing how kinetic projectiles would interact with standard galactic shielding systems. The results were disturbing. Energy shields created a barrier that could absorb or deflect various forms of radiation and charged particles. They were incredibly effective against the weapons that galactic civilizations had been using for millions of years. But they had a weakness that no one had considered important. They didn't stop solid objects moving at high velocity. "Commander," his aide reported, "the Council is ordering us to proceed with the subjugation mission. They want the human homeworld captured intact for study." Vextar looked at the tactical display showing the positions of his fleet. 400 ships, the largest force ever assembled for a single mission. Enough firepower to reduce a planet to molten rock. But as he studied the reports from the previous encounters, he felt something he had never experienced before in his long military career: doubt. The humans had destroyed 3 fleets using weapons that any galactic engineer would consider obsolete junk. They had taken technology that was millions of years old and somehow made it effective against the most advanced military forces in the galaxy. "Sir?" his aide prompted. Vexatar straightened his shoulders and activated the fleet communication system. "All ships, proceed to the human system. Maintain combat readiness and prepare for unconventional resistance. As the massive fleet began, moving toward Earth, Vextar continued studying the human weapons data. Somewhere in these primitive kinetic systems was a lesson that the galaxy had forgotten. He intended to learn what it was, even if it meant facing the dumbest weapons he had ever seen in combat. The war between humanity and the Galactic Council was about to begin in earnest, and neither side truly understood what they were about to face. Captain Hyeji Lee stood on the bridge of the human destroyer Soul's Pride, watching as her crew prepared for battle. Through the main view screen, she could see the alien fleet approaching like a swarm of deadly insects. 400 ships each, one larger and more advanced than anything humanity had ever built. "Captain," her weapons officer called out, "all railguns are loaded and ready to fire." Hyeji nodded and activated the ship's communication system. "All hands, this is the captain. In 30 minutes, we're going to show these aliens why they should have stayed home. Remember your training, trust your weapons, and let's send them a message they won't forget." On the lower decks, engineer Taiho Choi made his final checks on the ship's primary weapon system. The railguns stretched nearly the entire length of the ship, a series of magnetic coils that could accelerate a metal projectile to incredible speeds. It was a simple concept that had been used on Earth for decades, but Taiho had made improvements that would surprise their alien visitors. The projectiles themselves were works of art in their simplicity. Solid tungsten rods, each one precisely machined to exact specifications. No explosives, no complex guidance systems, no energy cores, just dense metal designed to transfer as much kinetic energy as possible to whatever it hit. Taiho, his assistant, called from across the engineering bay, "The magnetic field generators are at full power. We're ready to fire on command." Taiho checked his instruments one more time. The railgun was operating perfectly, drawing power from the ship's reactor to create the magnetic fields that would launch their simple ammunition at their complex enemies. Meanwhile, on the Helion flagship, Commander Vexatar watched the human fleet take defensive positions around their home planet. 50 human ships against 400 galactic vessels. The odds should have been overwhelming in his favor, but the reports from previous battles made him cautious. "Sir," his intelligence officer approached with a data tablet, "we've completed our analysis of the intercepted human communications." Vextar took the device and read the translation. The humans were discussing their weapons openly, as if they had nothing to hide. The conversations revealed details about their rail guns and mass drivers that confirmed his worst fears. The humans weren't using primitive weapons because they didn't know better. They were using them because they had specifically chosen them to fight galactic forces. "They know about our shield technology," Vextar realized. "They've studied our defenses and designed their weapons to exploit our weaknesses." The intelligence officer nodded. "The communications suggest they've been preparing for this conflict for months. They call it asymmetric warfare, using unconventional methods to defeat a superior enemy." Vextar felt his confidence wavering. The Galactic Council had assumed that any species capable of space travel would follow the same technological development path that every other civilization had taken. Energy weapons, deflector shields, faster-than-light travel, the standard progression that had been followed for millions of years. But humanity had taken a different path. On Earth, Dr. Minho Kim stood in the command bunker, monitoring the battle preparations. Screens around him showed the status of orbital, defense platforms, lunar mass drivers, and the converted mining stations in the asteroid belt. Everything was ready. Dr. Kim, Admiral Jaiwan Park approached his station. "The enemy fleet will be in range in 15 minutes. Are you confident in our weapons?" Minho smiled and gestured to a display showing the technical specifications of their kinetic weapons. Admiral, these aliens have been fighting with energy weapons for so long that they've forgotten the basics. They think more advanced means more complex. We're about to remind them that sometimes simple is better. The display showed the physics behind their strategy. Kinetic energy increased with the square of velocity. By using magnetic acceleration to achieve extremely high speeds, their simple metal projectiles carried more destructive power than most energy weapons. And unlike energy beams, solid projectiles couldn't be deflected by electromagnetic fields. The beauty of kinetic weapons, Minho continued, is that they follow the laws of physics, not the laws of technology. No matter how advanced their shields are, they can't change the fact that mass times velocity equals momentum. In space, the two fleets moved closer to engagement range. The alien ships were impressive to look at, their hulls gleaming with energy fields and their weapons ports glowing with contained power. They moved in perfect formations, each ship positioned to provide maximum firepower while maintaining defensive coverage. The human ships looked crude by comparison, angular hulls made of steel and composite materials with visible weapon systems and minimal external electronics. They moved like workers heading to a job site, not like the elegant dancers of the Galactic Fleet. But appearances could be deceiving. Captain Hyeji Lee watched as the range counter on her tactical display counted down. Weapons. Do you have a targeting solution? Yes, ma'am. Lead ship is locked and ready. Fire when ready. The Soul's Pride shuddered as its railgun fired. The tungsten projectile left the barrel at 30% of light speed, crossing the distance to the alien flagship in seconds. On the Helion ship, automatic systems detected the incoming object and classified it as a minor debris fragment. The projectile struck the flagship's primary shield generator, passing through the energy barrier as if it didn't exist. The tungsten rod punched through the ship's hull, traveled the length of 3 decks, and exited through the far side, leaving a perfectly round hole that immediately began venting atmosphere into space. Emergency alarms screamed across the Helion. Flagship as damage control teams rushed to seal the breach. Vextar stared at his tactical display in shock. His shields had failed to stop a simple piece of metal. How is this possible? He demanded. His chief engineer, looking pale and shaken, pulled up the shield diagnostic data. Sir, the energy barriers are functioning normally. The projectiles simply passed through them. Our shields aren't designed to stop solid objects moving at those velocities. Across the battlefield, more human ships opened fire. Railguns launched their simple ammunition at incredible speeds, and each shot found its target. The alien ships, with all their advanced technology and sophisticated defenses, were being torn apart by weapons that any galactic engineer would consider museum pieces. Tai-Ho Choi watched his engineering displays with satisfaction as the railgun cycled through its ammunition. Each shot was perfectly aimed and timed, thanks to targeting computers that had been designed specifically for kinetic warfare. The aliens might have superior technology, but humanity had superior tactics. Tai-Ho, his assistant called out. The captain wants to know how many rounds we have left. Tell her we have enough to keep this up all day, Tai-Ho replied. And remind her that every shot is guaranteed to hit. These aliens may be smart, but physics is smarter. On the Helion flagship, Vextar watched his fleet being systematically destroyed by weapons that shouldn't have been effective. Ships that had survived battles against energy weapons capable of destroying stars were being crippled by simple metal projectiles. Sir, his tactical officer reported, We've lost 18 ships. The humans are targeting our shield generators and weapon systems with surgical precision. Vextar realized that the humans weren't just using primitive weapons. They were using them intelligently, with careful planning and precise execution. Every shot was calculated to cause maximum damage to critical systems. Order all ships to focus fire on the human flagship, Vextar commanded. Let's see how well their primitive armor holds up to plasma cannons. The alien fleet concentrated its firepower on Admiral Jiwan Park's command ship. Energy beams and plasma bolts struck the human vessel, but its simple steel armor absorbed the impacts while heat dissipation systems kept the hull temperature manageable. Damage report, Jiwan called out as her ship shook under the alien bombardment. Minor hull scoring, some paint burned off. The armor is holding fine, Admiral. Jiwan smiled. The aliens had made the same mistake that humanity had learned to avoid centuries ago. They had focused so much on creating powerful weapons that they had forgotten the importance of effective defense. Human ships used simple, proven technologies that worked reliably under any conditions. As the battle continued, it became clear that the outcome was inevitable. The human weapons were devastating the alien fleet, while the alien weapons were having minimal effect on the human ships. Commander Vexitar finally understood what he was facing. Humanity had turned simplicity into an art form, and they were painting masterpieces with the wreckage of galactic fleets. Systems analyst Yunji Kang stood before a massive display showing the electromagnetic signatures of captured alien technology. Her team had been working around the clock to understand how galactic shielding systems operated and what they had. Discovered was both fascinating and terrifying. The aliens have been using the same basic shield design for millions of years, she explained to her gathered colleagues. They've refined it and improved it, but the fundamental principles haven't changed. The display showed a three-dimensional model of a typical galactic energy shield. Layers of electromagnetic fields created barriers that could deflect plasma, absorb laser energy, and redirect particle beams. It was incredibly sophisticated technology that represented millions of years of development. The problem, Yunji continued, is that every improvement they made was designed to counter energy-based attacks. They never considered that someone might use kinetic weapons against them. Dr. Minho Kim studied the technical readouts with growing amazement. It's like they built the perfect defense against modern weapons and left themselves completely vulnerable to ancient ones. Yunji nodded and highlighted specific components of the shield system. Look at these power distribution patterns. 90% of the shield's energy goes into electromagnetic field generation. Only 10% is allocated for physical barrier creation, and that's mainly to deflect space debris. The implications were staggering. Every galactic civilization had followed the same technological development path, creating an identical weakness in their defenses. They had optimized their shields to fight each other, never imagining that someone might approach warfare from a completely different angle. On the Helion flagship, Commander Vextar was reaching the same conclusion. His engineering teams had completed their analysis of human kinetic weapons, and the results confirmed his worst fears. "Sir," his chief engineer reported, "we've identified the fundamental problem with our defensive systems. Our shields are designed as energy barriers, not physical ones." Vextar studied the engineering report with growing unease. The humans had exploited a weakness that no galactic species had considered important for millions of years. It was like discovering that your house had no locks because everyone had forgotten that doors could be opened by turning handles. "Can we modify our shields to stop kinetic attacks?" "Yes, sir, but it would require a complete redesign of our power systems. We would need to redirect energy from weapons and propulsion to create physical barriers strong enough to stop high-velocity projectiles. Vexitar realized the cruel irony of their situation. To defend against human weapons, his ships would have to give up most of their offensive capability. They would become floating fortresses with minimal firepower. Meanwhile, weapons specialist Dong-Yun Lim was leading a raid against an isolated alien supply convoy. His small fleet of human ships moved through the asteroid belt like hunters stalking prey, using the cover of space rocks to mask their approach. "Target the escort ships first," he ordered his squadron. "Take out their weapons and engines, but leave the cargo vessels intact. We need their supplies." The human ships opened fire with their railguns, sending tungsten projectiles streaking across space. The alien escort vessels, confident in their energy shields, made no attempt to evade the incoming rounds. Their shields flared as the projectiles approached, energy fields designed to deflect plasma beams and laser fire. The tungsten rods passed through the shields without slowing down. Within minutes, the escort ships were drifting hulks, their weapon systems destroyed and their engines disabled. The cargo vessels, recognizing the futility of resistance, transmitted surrender signals. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "the cargo ships are requesting terms for surrender." "Tell them they'll be treated according to galactic conventions," Dong-Yun replied, "but their cargo now belongs to humanity. The captured supplies included shield generators, power cores, and technical documentation that would prove invaluable to human engineers. But more importantly, they had demonstrated once again that galactic military technology was helpless against human tactics. Back on Earth, Yunji Kang was presenting her findings to Admiral Jiwon Park and the senior command staff. Her analysis had revealed something that would change humanity's understanding of galactic civilization. "The aliens aren't just vulnerable to kinetic weapons," she explained. "They're vulnerable to any physical attack. Their entire military doctrine is based on energy warfare." She showed them examples from the captured technical data. Galactic ships had minimal armor because they relied on energy shields for protection. Their weapons were designed to overwhelm enemy shields with concentrated energy, not to penetrate. Physical barriers. "It's like they've been playing a completely different game than us," Admiral Jiwon observed. "They've optimized everything for energy combat." "Exactly," Yunji confirmed. "And because every galactic species followed the same development path, they all have the same weaknesses. They're prepared to fight each other, but they're not prepared to fight us." The revelation opened up new tactical possibilities. If galactic forces were vulnerable to kinetic attacks, they might also be vulnerable to other physical weapons that humanity had developed. Chemical explosives, fragmentation warheads, even simple ramming attacks might be effective against enemies who had never encountered such tactics. On the Helion flagship, Vexitar was struggling with a decision that would affect the entire galactic fleet. His engineers had presented him with 3 options for dealing with the human threat, and none of them were appealing. "Option 1, his chief engineer explained, "we can modify our shields to create physical barriers capable of stopping kinetic projectiles. This would reduce our weapon power by 70% and our speed by 40%. Option 2, we can install additional armor plating to absorb kinetic impacts. This would make our ships heavier and slower and reduce our maneuverability significantly. Option 3, we can develop our own kinetic weapons to fight the humans on equal terms. This would require completely new manufacturing facilities and ammunition supply chains." Vexitar considered the options with growing frustration. Each one required sacrificing the advantages that had made galactic fleets dominant for millions of years. Speed, firepower, and technological superiority would all be compromised to counter humanity's primitive weapons. There has to be another solution, he said finally. Sir, his tactical officer spoke up hesitantly. There might be a fourth option. Vexitar turned to him with interest. Explain. We could retreat and negotiate with the humans, learn their techniques, and adapt our technology gradually, rather than trying to fight them with incompatible systems. The suggestion was almost unthinkable. The Galactic Council had never retreated from a primitive species. But as Vexitar studied the tactical data, he realized that humanity wasn't actually primitive. They were different. Meanwhile, Dongyun Lim was coordinating the deployment of humanity's newest weapon system. The captured alien technology had given human engineers insights into galactic power systems, and they had developed a kinetic weapon specifically designed to exploit those weaknesses. The electromagnetic pulse projectiles are ready for testing, his chief engineer reported. When they impact an alien ship, they'll create a localized EMP that should disrupt their energy systems. The new rounds combined kinetic and electromagnetic warfare in a way that galactic forces had never encountered. The physical impact would penetrate their shields, and the electromagnetic pulse would disable their electronics. It's like hitting them with a hammer and a lightning bolt at the same time, Dongyun observed with satisfaction. Dr. Yunji Kang was putting the finishing touches on her comprehensive analysis of galactic military technology. Her team had identified dozens of weaknesses that humanity could exploit, from power system vulnerabilities to tactical blind spots. The aliens have been fighting the same way for so long that they've forgotten how to adapt, she explained to her staff. Every innovation they've made has been incremental, building on existing technology rather than exploring new approaches. What does that mean for us? One of her analysts asked. It means that every time we surprise them with something new, they'll need months or years to develop an effective counter. And by then, we'll have moved on to the next surprise. Commander. Vexitar finally made his decision. Standing on the bridge of his flagship, surrounded by the wreckage of 3 destroyed fleets, he activated the emergency communication system. All ships, this is Fleet Command. We are withdrawing to the outer system to reassess our tactical situation. Do not engage human forces unless directly attacked. His officers looked shocked. A galactic fleet had never retreated from a single planet before. Sir, his aide asked quietly, what should I tell the council? Vexitar studied the tactical display showing human ships moving confidently through space, their simple weapons having defeated the most advanced military force in the galaxy. Tell them, he said finally, that we have encountered an enemy who doesn't fight by the rules, and until we learn new rules ourselves, we are at a severe disadvantage. The dumbest weapons in the galaxy had just forced the smartest military minds to admit that sometimes intelligence meant knowing when you were outmatched. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in the massive chamber on Nexus Prime, the political center of galactic civilization. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the tiered seating, their voices creating a buzz of concern and confusion that echoed off the crystal walls. Council Prime Zelak called for order with a gesture of his 6 arms. The situation in the Terran system has become unacceptable. 4 fleets have been defeated by a species that achieved spaceflight less than 2 centuries ago. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the assembly. The Keth representative stood to speak, his scaled form imposing in the chamber's lighting. Prime Zelak, Our reports indicate that the humans are using primitive kinetic weapons. Surely this is a temporary setback that can be corrected with proper tactics. Temporary, the Zephyran delegate interjected, her blue skin flushed with emotion. They've destroyed 300 ships. Our most advanced vessels are being torn apart by chunks of metal. Prime Zelak raised his primary arms for silence. The Council has decided to authorize the deployment of the Nexus fleet. 2,000 ships, including our most advanced dreadnoughts, will proceed to the human system immediately. On Earth, Admiral Seojin Han stood in the newly constructed command center buried beneath the Pacific Ocean. The facility buzzed with activity as hundreds of technicians monitored displays showing the movements of human forces throughout the solar system. The blue glow of the tactical screens reflected off Han's face as she studied the latest intelligence reports. "Ma'am," her intelligence officer approached with a data tablet. "Long-range sensors have detected a massive alien fleet assembling beyond Pluto's orbit. 2,000 ships, including vessels larger than anything we've seen before." Seojin nodded grimly. She had expected this escalation. "How long until they reach Earth?" 8 days at their current speed. Seojin turned to the woman standing beside her. Dr. Yuna Cho, Humanity's chief ammunition specialist, looked determined despite the overwhelming odds they faced. "Are the new munitions ready for deployment?" Yuna checked her tablet and smiled. "The factories have been running at full capacity. We have enough ammunition to fight for months, and our new designs should surprise them." The new ammunition represented another leap in human engineering. Yuna's team had developed projectiles that could change their behavior during flight, adapting to whatever countermeasures the aliens deployed. They had also created rounds specifically designed to exploit the weaknesses in galactic technology that Yunji Kong had identified. Meanwhile, engineer Jin Wu Bei supervised the final preparations at the lunar mass driver installations. The moon's low gravity and lack of atmosphere made it perfect for launching extremely large projectiles at incredible velocities. His team had converted the mining equipment into weapons of unprecedented scale. "Sir," his assistant reported, "the mass drivers are loaded with the new asteroid rounds. Each one weighs 50,000 tons and will impact at 15% of light speed." Jinwoo nodded with satisfaction. The aliens were bringing their biggest ships, so humanity would respond with their biggest weapons. The kinetic energy of a 50,000-ton asteroid moving at that velocity would be equivalent to a small nuclear weapon, but without the electromagnetic signature that energy shields could deflect. "How many rounds do we have ready?" 150, sir. Enough to target every major ship in their fleet. On the Nexus Fleet flagship, Supreme Commander Thaxon reviewed the tactical plans for the assault on Earth. The ship was a marvel of galactic engineering, 5 kilometers long, and armed with weapons capable of shattering moons. Its shields could absorb the energy output of a star, and its armor was made from materials forged in the cores of dead planets. "Commander," his tactical officer reported, "we've completed our analysis of the human weapon systems. Our new shield configurations should be able to stop their kinetic projectiles." Thaxon studied the technical specifications with approval. The Galactic Council's best engineers had worked around the clock to develop countermeasures for humanity's primitive weapons. The new shields created multiple layers of physical barriers backed by gravitational fields that could slow down high-velocity projectiles. What about our offensive capabilities? We've modified our plasma cannons to create focused beams that should penetrate their crude armor. We're also deploying gravity bombs that will crush their ships regardless of their defensive systems. Thaxon felt confident in his fleet's ability to end the human threat quickly and decisively. The Council had given him the most powerful military force ever assembled, and he intended to use it to demonstrate galactic superiority once and for all. Back on Earth, Admiral Seojin Han was coordinating humanity's response to the incoming threat. The human fleet had grown to 200 ships, each one armed with the latest kinetic weapons and protected by armor designed to absorb energy attacks. "Status report," she called out to her staff. "All orbital platforms are online," her tactical officer reported. "The asteroid belt installations are ready to fire. Lunar mass drivers are loaded and targeted. Ground-based railguns are prepared for planetary defense." Seojin studied the tactical display showing the positions of human forces throughout the solar system. They were outnumbered 10-1, but they had advantages that the aliens didn't understand. Home field advantage, superior knowledge of local space, and weapons that the enemy was still struggling to counter. "Ma'am," her communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the alien fleet. They're demanding our immediate surrender." "Put it on screen." Supreme Commander Thaxon's image appeared on the main display, his alien features stern and imposing. "I am Supreme Commander Thaxon of the Nexus Fleet. You will surrender immediately and submit to Galactic Council authority, or face the consequences of defying our superior forces." Seojin stepped forward to respond. "This is Admiral Seojin Han of the Earth Defense Fleet. Your forces are not welcome in our system. Withdraw immediately, or we will be forced to defend ourselves." Thaxon's expression showed contempt. "You cannot seriously believe that your primitive weapons can defeat the most advanced fleet in galactic history. Surrender now, and your species will be treated with mercy." "Admiral," Unicho spoke quietly, "the new rounds are loaded and ready. Should we give them a demonstration?" Seojin nodded. "Fire one round at their lead ship. Let's show them what they're dealing with." The order was transmitted to the lunar mass driver installation, where Jinwoo Bei's team had been waiting for this moment. The massive electromagnetic launcher activated, accelerating a tungsten-cored asteroid to incredible velocity. The projectile left the moon's surface like a silver streak, crossing the distance to the alien fleet in minutes. On Thaxon's flagship, automatic systems detected the incoming object and classified it as a large asteroid fragment. The ship's defensive systems activated, creating multiple layers of energy barriers designed to vaporize or deflect the projectile. The asteroid struck the barriers and shattered into dozens of smaller pieces, each one still moving at tremendous velocity. The fragments passed through the energy shields and slammed into the ship's hull, creating a pattern of craters across the massive vessel's surface. Emergency alarms screamed across the flagship as atmosphere vented from dozens of puncture wounds. Damage control teams rushed to seal the breaches while engineers tried to understand how their improved shields had failed. "Commander," his chief engineer reported with shock in his voice, "the projectile fragmented just before impact. Our shields were designed to stop a single large object, not multiple smaller ones." Thaxon stared at the damage reports in disbelief. The humans had anticipated his countermeasures and developed new tactics to defeat them. "How many more of those weapons do they have?" "Unknown, sir. But if they can target all of our major ships with similar attacks," the implications were terrifying. The Nexus fleet's advantage in size and firepower meant nothing if the humans could destroy their largest vessels with single shots. Meanwhile, Jinwoo Bei was already preparing the next surprise for the alien fleet. His team had developed fragmenting projectiles that could split into hundreds of pieces just before impact, overwhelming any point defense system. They had also created guided asteroids that could adjust their course during flight, making them impossible to dodge. "Sir," his assistant reported. The aliens are beginning evasive maneuvers. Should we fire the guided rounds? Not yet, Jinwoo replied. Let them think they can avoid our weapons. The surprise will be more effective when they realize that running doesn't help. Dr. Yuna Cho was monitoring the alien fleet's response from her laboratory on Earth. The enemy ships were spreading out and increasing their speed, trying to make themselves harder to target. It was exactly what she had expected them to do. They're playing right into our hands, she told her staff. The more they spread out, the easier it will be to isolate and destroy individual ships. She activated the communication system to contact the asteroid belt mining stations. This is Dr. Cho. Execute Plan Avalanche. Throughout the asteroid belt, converted mining stations began launching their own projectiles. Not the massive asteroids that the lunar installations fired, but smaller. Rocks accelerated to even higher velocities. Thousands. Commander Vextar sat in his private quarters aboard the Helion flagship, surrounded by data tablets and holographic displays showing the wreckage of 6 alien fleets. The latest battle had been the most devastating yet, with the supposedly invincible Nexus fleet reduced to scattered debris floating in Earth's outer system. For 3 days he had been analyzing every second of combat footage, every tactical decision, and every weapon deployment. What he had discovered was changing his understanding of warfare itself. Computer, he said to the ship's artificial intelligence, display comparative analysis of human and galactic weapon effectiveness. The hologram showed 2 columns of data. On one side, galactic energy weapons with their impressive power outputs, sophisticated targeting systems, and elegant energy efficiency. On the other side, human kinetic weapons with their crude simplicity and massive power requirements. But the effectiveness ratings told a different story. Human weapons achieved target destruction rates of over 90%, while galactic weapons struggled to penetrate even basic human armor. The numbers were undeniable, even if they defied conventional wisdom. The humans didn't choose kinetic weapons because they're primitive, Vextar realized aloud. They chose them because they work. On Earth, Dr. Minji Ryu stood before a gathering of human military leaders, presenting her analysis of why their unconventional approach to warfare had been so successful. The conference room was filled with admirals, generals, and scientists who had participated in humanity's defense against galactic forces. The key to our success, she explained, isn't just our weapons, it's our philosophy. We approach problems differently than galactic civilizations do. She activated a holographic display showing the development history of both human and alien technology. Look at how we solve engineering problems. When we encounter an obstacle, we ask, what's the simplest way to overcome this? The aliens ask, what's the most advanced way to overcome this? Admiral Ji-Won Park leaned forward with interest. Give us an example. Take space combat, Minji continued. The aliens developed sophisticated energy weapons because they wanted elegant solutions that could be easily controlled and modified. We developed kinetic weapons because we wanted something that would reliably destroy whatever we pointed it at. The difference in approach was fundamental. Galactic civilizations had spent millions of years refining their technology, making it more complex and sophisticated with each generation. Humanity had focused on making their technology more effective, regardless of complexity. We're not smarter than they are, Minji observed. We're just more practical. Meanwhile, Kang Min-oh supervised the deployment of humanity's latest tactical innovation at the Jupiter orbital stations. His team had been studying captured alien technology and had discovered something that would revolutionize human warfare. Sir, his chief engineer reported, "We've successfully reverse-engineered their faster-than-light communication system. We can now coordinate attacks across the entire solar system in real time." Kang Min smiled as he reviewed the technical specifications. The aliens had developed FTL communication to coordinate their complex energy weapons across vast distances. Humanity would use it to coordinate their simple kinetic weapons with devastating precision. How long until we can equip all our installations with the new communication system? 72 hours, sir. Once it's online, we'll be able to time our attacks down to the microsecond. The implications were staggering. Human weapons were already effective when fired independently. Coordinated across multiple installations with perfect timing, they would be unstoppable. On the Galactic Council's emergency command ship, Prime Zelak reviewed the latest reports from the Terran system with growing despair. 7 fleets destroyed, thousands of ships lost, and the humans showing no signs of weakness or fatigue. "The casualties are becoming unacceptable," he announced to the assembled fleet commanders. "We must find a way to counter their weapons, or consider alternative approaches." Supreme Commander Thaxon, his flagship still undergoing repairs from the asteroid bombardment, stood to address the Council. "Prime Zelak, I believe we have fundamentally misunderstood the nature of this conflict." "Explain." "We assumed that the humans were using primitive weapons because they lacked the knowledge to develop advanced ones. But analysis of their tactics suggests otherwise. They're using kinetic weapons because they specifically chose them to fight us." The revelation sent murmurs of concern through the assembled commanders. The idea that a newly discovered species had analyzed galactic military doctrine and developed specific countermeasures was almost unthinkable. "You're suggesting they planned this?" Prime Zelak asked. "I'm suggesting they're much more intelligent than we gave them credit for," Thaxon replied. "Every engagement has shown careful planning and tactical innovation. They're not fighting like primitives. They're fighting like military geniuses who happen to prefer simple tools." Back on Earth, Dr. Minji Ryu was explaining humanity's approach to technological development to a group of captured alien officers. The prisoners had requested the meeting, claiming they wanted to understand how their superior technology had been defeated so thoroughly. "Your weapons are impressive," the lead Keth officer said, "but they require enormous amounts of energy and resources. Surely this approach is inefficient." Minji pulled up a comparison chart showing resource allocation between human and galactic military systems. "You're right that our weapons require more energy per shot, but look at the overall efficiency ratings." The chart showed that while individual human weapons consumed more power, their high success rates meant fewer shots were needed to achieve objectives. Galactic weapons required multiple hits to penetrate human defenses, making them less efficient. "Overall, we also build our entire infrastructure to support our weapons," she continued. "Your civilizations try to make weapons that fit your existing infrastructure. We make infrastructure that maximizes our weapons' effectiveness." The distinction was crucial. Human military doctrine was built around the principle that if something worked, you supported it completely. Galactic doctrine was built around elegant integration of multiple complex systems. "But what happens when you face an enemy who uses kinetic weapons like yours?" the Zephyran officer asked. Minji smiled. "Then we'll adapt. That's what humans do. We find what works, and then we make it work better." Meanwhile, Kang Min-o was putting the finishing touches on humanity's next surprise for any remaining alien forces. His team had developed a new type of kinetic weapon that incorporated lessons learned from studying galactic energy systems. The Plasma-assisted railguns are ready for testing, his chief engineer reported. They use captured alien power cores to create magnetic fields that are 50 times stronger than our previous designs. The new weapons could accelerate projectiles to 40% of light speed, making them effectively unavoidable at anything less than interplanetary distances. They also used alien materials to create ammunition that was denser and more destructive than anything humanity had previously developed. It's ironic, Kang Min observed. We're using their advanced technology to make our primitive weapons even more effective. Commander Vextar had reached a conclusion that would have seemed impossible weeks earlier. Standing on his bridge, looking at the tactical display showing human forces confidently patrolling their solar system, he finally understood what he was facing. "Tactical officer," he called out, "compose a message to the human fleet. Sir, tell them that Commander Vexatar of the Helion Empire requests permission to meet with their leadership. I want to discuss cooperation." His crew looked shocked. A galactic commander had never requested a meeting with a primitive species before. But Vextar had realized that humanity wasn't primitive at all. They were something much more dangerous. They were practical. The humans had looked at galactic military technology and asked a simple question: how do we beat this? Then they had found the simplest, most effective answer and built their entire military around it. No complex theories, no elegant solutions, just brutal effectiveness. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a response from the humans. Admiral Park says she'll meet with you, but the meeting will take place on Earth and you'll come alone." Vextar nodded. "Prepare a shuttle. It's time to learn how the dumbest weapons in the galaxy defeated the smartest military minds." As his shuttle prepared to depart for Earth, Vexatar reflected on the lesson that humanity had taught the galaxy. Sometimes the most sophisticated response to a complex problem wasn't more complexity. Sometimes it was elegant simplicity, applied with absolute determination. The humans had taken the oldest weapons in the galaxy and made them the most effective. They had proven that innovation didn't always mean advancement. Sometimes it meant going back to basics and doing them better than anyone thought possible. General Sujin An stood on the bridge of the human assault carrier Busan's Thunder, watching as her fleet approached the outer colonies of the Keth Empire. 3 months had passed since the destruction of the Nexus fleet, and humanity had decided that the best defense was a good offense. "Ma'am," her tactical officer reported, "we're detecting defensive installations around the 4th planet. Standard galactic configuration. Orbital platforms with energy shields and plasma weaponry." Sujin nodded and activated the fleet communication system. "All ships, this is General An. Remember, we're here to liberate these colonies from Galactic Council oppression, not to conquer them. Use precision strikes only. Target military installations and avoid civilian areas." The human fleet had grown to 500 ships built in the orbital shipyards that had been constructed using captured alien technology. Each vessel was a hybrid of human engineering and galactic materials, combining the best of both approaches to create something entirely new. Meanwhile, tactician Wu Jin-go coordinated the attack from the fleet's command center. His screens showed the positions of enemy installations and the calculated trajectories for their kinetic strikes. The aliens had learned to fear human weapons, but they still hadn't developed effective countermeasures. "Sir," his aide reported, "the enemy installations are powering up their shields. They appear to be using the new layered barrier design." Wu Jin smiled. The aliens had spent months developing improved shields that could supposedly stop kinetic projectiles. It was time to test whether their upgrades were effective against humanity's latest innovations. "Launch the penetrator rounds," he ordered. The human ships fired their newest ammunition, multi-stage projectiles that could punch through multiple layers of shielding before detonating inside enemy installations. The aliens had designed their defenses to stop solid objects, but they hadn't considered what would happen when those objects carried explosive payloads. On the planet below, Communications Officer Hayan Park established contact with the civilian population. Her team had been monitoring alien communications for months, learning their languages and understanding their concerns about the war. "This is Commander Park of the Earth Liberation Fleet," she broadcast on all civilian frequencies. "We are not here to harm you. We're here to end the Galactic Council's oppression and offer you freedom to choose your own government." The response was immediate and surprising. Instead of fear or hostility, many of the alien civilians expressed relief and even gratitude. The Galactic Council's rule had been harsh, with heavy taxation and strict controls on individual freedoms. "Commander," her communications specialist reported, "we're receiving surrender requests from several colonies. They want to negotiate terms for peaceful transition." Hayan was amazed. The humans had expected to fight for every planet, but many worlds were actually welcoming their arrival. The Galactic Council's oppressive policies had created widespread resentment that humanity could exploit. Back on Earth, engineer Kyung-ho Jang worked in the vast laboratories where human scientists were reverse engineering captured alien technology. The combination of galactic knowledge and human innovation was producing remarkable results. "We've successfully adapted their faster-than-light drive systems," he reported to his team. "But instead of using their complex energy matrices, we're powering them with simple fusion reactors." The hybrid technology was proving to be more reliable than either human or alien systems alone. Human engineering provided robust, practical solutions, while alien technology offered capabilities that humanity had never imagined possible. "How does this affect our ship design?" his assistant asked. "We can now build vessels that are faster than anything in the galactic fleet, but simpler to maintain and operate. It's the best of both worlds." On the Galactic Council's capital world, Prime Zelak convened another emergency session as reports poured in from across the galaxy. Human forces were advancing on multiple fronts, liberating colonies and defeating every military force sent against them. "The situation is becoming untenable," he announced to the assembled representatives. "The humans have captured 17 star systems and show no signs of slowing their advance." The Vorthon delegate stood to speak, her crystalline form reflecting the chamber's lighting. "Prime Zelak, perhaps it's time to consider that our approach to this conflict has been fundamentally flawed." "What do you suggest?" "The humans have repeatedly stated that they don't want to conquer the galaxy. They want to liberate it from our control. Maybe we should ask ourselves why so many worlds are welcoming their liberation." The suggestion created an uproar in the chamber. For millions of years, the Galactic Council had ruled through superior technology and military force. The idea that their subjects might actually prefer human leadership was almost incomprehensible. Commander Vextar, who had been allowed to return from Earth after his meeting with Admiral Park, stood to address the Council. His presence was controversial, as many suspected him of collaboration with the enemy. "Prime Zelak, I have spent time among the humans and studied their society. I believe the Vorthon delegate is correct. Our problem isn't military, it's philosophical." "Explain." "The humans offer something we don't: genuine freedom. Their liberated worlds are allowed to govern themselves, choose their own leaders, and develop their own technologies. We offer order and stability, but at the cost of individual liberty." The chamber erupted in angry voices as representatives debated whether freedom was worth the chaos it might bring. The Galactic Council had maintained peace for millions of years through strict control and standardized systems. The human approach seemed dangerously unpredictable. Meanwhile, General Sujin An was meeting with the newly liberated government of the Keth colony world. The local leaders had agreed to join the growing alliance of free worlds that humanity was establishing. "We offer you full membership in the Liberation Alliance," she explained to the assembled delegates. "You'll have complete autonomy over your internal affairs, but we ask that you contribute to our mutual defense against Council forces." The Keth leader, a massive warrior named Grax, considered the proposal carefully. "What guarantees do we have that you won't become oppressive rulers like the Council?" "Our entire political system is based on preventing that," Sujin replied. "No single world or species can dominate the alliance. All major decisions require consensus among member worlds." It was a radical departure from galactic norms. Instead of imposing human values on liberated worlds, humanity was creating a framework where different species could cooperate while maintaining their unique cultures and governments. Back on Earth, tactician Wu Jin Go was analyzing the strategic situation as human forces continued their advance across the galaxy. The Liberation Alliance now controlled over 50 star systems, with more joining every week. "The Council's response has been predictable," he reported to his staff. "They're consolidating their remaining forces around their core worlds, preparing for a final defensive stand." "What's our counter-strategy?" his aide asked. "We don't need one," Wu Jin replied. "Time is on our side. Every day that passes, more worlds join the Alliance voluntarily. The Council is fighting a war they've already lost. They just don't realize it yet." The human approach to galactic conquest was unlike anything in recorded history. Instead of forcing submission through superior firepower, they were winning hearts and minds by offering something better than what people already had. Communications Officer Haeun Park was coordinating with resistance movements on Council-controlled worlds, providing them with weapons and tactical support. The combination of human kinetic weapons and local knowledge was proving devastatingly effective against Council security forces. "The resistance on Nexus Prime is requesting additional ammunition," she reported to General An. "They've captured 3 government buildings and are holding them against Council forces. Send them whatever they need," Sujin replied. "But remind them that we want to minimize civilian casualties. This is about liberation, not destruction." The distinction was important. Human forces were careful to avoid the brutal tactics that had characterized galactic warfare for millions of years. They fought to free people, not to punish them. On the Council capital world, Prime Zelak faced a crisis that threatened the very foundation of galactic civilization. Reports of successful human operations were arriving hourly, each one representing another failure of Council authority. "Sir," his aide reported, "we've lost contact with the Zephyrin sector. All 6 star systems have joined the Liberation Alliance." Prime Zelak realized that the Galactic Council was facing something it had never encountered before, an enemy that people actually wanted to win. The humans weren't conquering the galaxy. They were liberating it from Council rule. And there was nothing the most advanced military force in galactic history could do to stop them. Commander Vextar watched from his quarters as the tide of war turned decisively against the Galactic Council. The humans had proven that sometimes the most powerful weapon wasn't technology or superior firepower. Sometimes it was simply offering people a better way to live. The dumbest weapons in the galaxy had become the foundation for the Commander Vexitar stood in the cargo bay of his personal shuttle, surrounded by cases containing detailed intelligence about Galactic Council military installations, fleet positions, and defensive strategies. The decision to defect had not been easy, but after months of watching humanity's approach to warfare and governance, he had realized which side represented the future of galactic civilization. The shuttle approached the human orbital station above Earth, where Admiral Jiwan Park waited to receive the highest-ranking galactic officer ever to change sides in the war. Vextar's 4 eyes studied the station's design with professional interest. Like everything human, it combined practical functionality with elegant simplicity. "Commander Vextar," Admiral Park greeted him as he disembarked. "Welcome to Harmony Station. I hope you're prepared for what comes next." Vextar activated his personal translator and replied, "Admiral Park, I bring information that could end this war quickly. But more importantly, I bring a proposal that could benefit both our peoples." They walked through corridors lined with human and alien personnel working side by side. The integration of different species was seamless, a stark contrast to the rigid hierarchies that characterized Galactic Council society. In the station's main conference room, Dr. Chae-Young Woo and engineer Sungmin Kwon were already waiting with detailed plans for the hybrid technology projects that had become humanity's latest advantage. The combination of human innovation and alien knowledge was producing remarkable results. "Commander," Dr. Chae-Young began, "we've been analyzing the technical data you provided during your preliminary negotiations. Your insights into Council shield technology have been invaluable." Sungmin activated a holographic display showing the latest hybrid weapon designs. "We've managed to combine our kinetic systems with Council energy cores to create weapons that are both more powerful and more efficient than either technology alone." Vextar studied the specifications with growing amazement. The humans had taken 2 incompatible technological approaches and somehow made them work together. It was a level of innovation that the Galactic Council had never achieved, despite millions of years of development. "How is this possible?" he asked. "Our engineers said that kinetic and energy systems couldn't be integrated." Admiral Jiwon smiled. "Your engineers were thinking like galactic specialists. Our engineers think like human generalists. When we see 2 things that work, we ask how to make them work together." The difference in approach was fundamental. Galactic civilizations had developed specialized technologies that excelled in specific areas but couldn't be easily combined. Humanity had developed adaptive technologies that could be modified and integrated with almost anything. Meanwhile, on the liberated world of Kepler Prime, the first interspecies council meeting of the Liberation Alliance was taking place. Representatives from 30 different species had gathered to establish the framework for a new form of galactic government. General Sujin An served as the meeting's moderator, but the decisions were being made by the representatives themselves. Unlike the Galactic Council's top-down authority structure, the Liberation Alliance operated on principles of consensus and voluntary cooperation. "The question before us," announced the Keth representative, "is how to handle former Council worlds that want to join the Alliance but maintain their existing government structures." The Zephyrian delegate responded, "We propose a gradual transition period where worlds can adapt their systems to Alliance standards while preserving their cultural autonomy." It was exactly the kind of flexible, practical solution that characterized human diplomacy. Instead of forcing immediate change, the Alliance allowed worlds to join at their own pace and in their own way. Back on Harmony Station, Vexitar was learning about humanity's long-term plans for galactic civilization. Dr. Chae-Young, showed him projections for technological development that incorporated the best elements from hundreds of different species. "We're not trying to impose human technology on the galaxy," she explained. "We're trying to create a technological synthesis that draws from everyone's strengths." The holographic models showed hybrid ships that combined human durability with Keth speed, Zephyrin energy efficiency, and Helion maneuverability. Weapon systems that used human kinetic principles with alien materials and power sources. Communication networks that merged different species' approaches to information sharing. "This is unprecedented," Vextar observed. "The Council always insisted on technological standardization. You're encouraging technological diversity." "Diversity makes us stronger," Sungmin added. "When everyone uses the same solutions, everyone has the same weaknesses. When we combine different approaches, we eliminate single points of failure." It was a profound philosophical difference. The Galactic Council had sought stability through uniformity. Humanity sought strength through diversity. On the Council capital world, Prime Zelak faced the inevitable end of galactic civilization as it had existed for millions of years. The Liberation Alliance now controlled 2/3 of known space, with more worlds joining daily. Council forces were confined to a shrinking sphere around their core systems. "Sir," his military advisor reported, "the humans are requesting a meeting to discuss terms for ending the conflict." "Terms?" Prime Zalak asked bitterly. "What terms can they offer? Unconditional surrender?" "Actually, sir, they're offering something quite different. They want to discuss how Council worlds can join the Liberation Alliance while maintaining their autonomy." The proposal was almost incomprehensible. Instead of demanding surrender and submission, the humans were offering partnership and cooperation. It was the kind of magnanimous gesture that the Council had never made to defeated enemies. Back on Harmony Station, Admiral Jiwan Park was explaining humanity's vision for galactic peace to Commander Vextar. The conference room's main display showed a map of known space with different colors, representing various forms of government and alliance membership. "We don't want to rule the galaxy," she said. "We want to liberate it. Every species should have the right to choose their own path, as long as they don't oppress others." Vextar studied the map with growing understanding. The Liberation Alliance wasn't an empire or a conquest. It was a voluntary association of free worlds that had chosen cooperation over domination. "What happens to Council leaders who surrender?" he asked. "They're offered the same choice as everyone else," Jiwan replied. "Join the alliance as equals or maintain independence as long as they respect others' freedom. We're not interested in revenge or punishment." The generosity was almost overwhelming. After months of devastating military defeats, the humans were offering their enemies a chance to become partners rather than subjects. Dr. Che-Young-Woo activated. Another display showing the technological advances that had emerged from human-alien cooperation. Medical breakthroughs that combined different species' biological knowledge. Agricultural techniques that could feed entire star systems. Energy. Systems that were clean, efficient, and virtually unlimited. Commander Vextar stood in the cargo bay of his personal shuttle, surrounded by cases containing detailed intelligence about Galactic Council military installations, fleet positions, and defensive strategies. The decision to defect had not been easy. But after months of watching humanity's approach to warfare and governance, he had realized which side represented the future of galactic civilization. The shuttle approached the human orbital station above Earth, where Admiral Jiwan Park waited to receive the highest-ranking galactic officer ever to change sides in the war. Vextar's 4 eyes studied the station's design with professional interest. Like everything human, It combined practical functionality with elegant simplicity. Commander Vextar, Admiral Park, greeted him as he disembarked. "Welcome to Harmony Station. I hope you're prepared for what comes next." Vextar activated his personal translator and replied, "Admiral Park, I bring information that could end this war quickly, but more importantly, I bring a proposal that could benefit both our peoples." They walked through corridors lined with human and alien personnel working side by side. The integration of different species was seamless, a stark contrast to the rigid hierarchies that characterized Galactic Council society. In the station's main conference room, Dr. Cheung Wu and engineer Seungmin Kwon were already waiting with detailed plans for the hybrid technology projects that had become humanity's latest advantage. The combination of human innovation and alien knowledge was producing remarkable results. "Commander," Dr. Cheung began, "we've been analyzing the technical data you provided during your preliminary negotiations. Your insights into Council shield technology have been invaluable." Seungmin activated a holographic display showing the latest hybrid weapon designs. "We've managed to combine our kinetic systems with Council energy cores to create weapons that are both more powerful and more efficient than either technology alone." Vextar studied the specifications with growing amazement. The humans had taken two incompatible technological approaches and somehow made them work together. It was a level of innovation that the Galactic Council had never achieved despite millions of years of development. "How is this possible?" he asked. "Our engineers said that kinetic and energy systems couldn't be integrated." Admiral Jiwon smiled. "Your engineers were thinking like galactic specialists. Our engineers think like human generalists. When we see two things that work, we ask how to make them work together." The difference in approach was fundamental. Galactic civilizations had developed specialized technologies that excelled in specific areas but couldn't be easily combined. Humanity had developed adaptive technologies that could be modified and integrated with almost anything. Meanwhile, on the liberated world of Kepler Prime, the first interspecies council meeting of the Liberation Alliance was taking place. Representatives from 30 different species had gathered to establish the framework for a new form of galactic government. General Sujin An served as the meeting's moderator, but the decisions were being made by the representatives themselves. Unlike the Galactic Council's top-down authority structure, the Liberation Alliance operated on principles of consensus and voluntary cooperation. "The question before us," announced the Keth representative, "is how to handle former Council worlds that want to join the Alliance but maintain their existing government structures." The Zephyran delegate responded, "We propose a gradual transition period where worlds can adapt their systems to Alliance standards while preserving their cultural autonomy." It was exactly the kind of flexible, practical solution that characterized human diplomacy. Instead of forcing immediate change, the Alliance allowed worlds to join at their own pace and in their own way. Back on Harmony Station, Vexatar was learning about humanity's long-term plans for galactic civilization. Dr. Cheung showed him projections for technological development that incorporated the best elements from hundreds of different species. "We're not trying to impose human technology on the galaxy," she explained. "We're trying to create a technological synthesis that draws from everyone's strengths." The holographic models showed hybrid ships that combined human durability with Keth speed, Zephyran energy efficiency, and Helion maneuverability. Weapon systems that used human kinetic principles with alien materials and power sources. Communication networks that merged different species' approaches to information sharing. "This is unprecedented," Vextar observed. "The Council always insisted on technological standardization. You're encouraging technological diversity. Diversity makes us stronger, Seungmin added. When everyone uses the same solutions, everyone has the same weaknesses. When we combine different approaches, we eliminate single points of failure. It was a profound philosophical difference. The Galactic Council had sought stability through uniformity. Humanity sought strength through diversity. On the Council capital world, Prime Zelak faced the inevitable end of galactic civilization as it had existed for millions of years. The Liberation Alliance now controlled 2/3 of known space, with more worlds joining daily. Council forces were confined to a shrinking sphere around their core systems. "Sir," his military advisor reported, "the humans are requesting a meeting to discuss terms for ending the conflict." "Terms?" Prime Zelak asked bitterly. "What terms can they offer? Unconditional surrender?" "Actually, sir, they're offering something quite different. They want to discuss how Council worlds can join the Liberation Alliance while maintaining their autonomy." The proposal was almost incomprehensible. Instead of demanding surrender and submission, the humans were offering partnership and cooperation. It was the kind of magnanimous gesture that the Council had never made to defeated enemies. Back on Harmony Station, Admiral Jiwon Park was explaining humanity's vision for galactic peace to Commander Vexitar. The conference room's main display showed a map of known space with different colors representing various forms of government and alliance membership. "We don't want to rule the galaxy," she said. "We want to liberate it. Every species should have the right to choose their own path, as long as they don't oppress others." Vextar studied the map with growing understanding. The Liberation Alliance wasn't an empire or a conquest. It was a voluntary association of free worlds that had chosen cooperation over domination. "What happens to Council leaders who surrender?" he asked. "They're offered the same choice as everyone else," Jiwon replied. "Join the alliance as equals, or maintain independence as long as they respect others' freedom. We're not interested in revenge or punishment." The generosity was almost overwhelming. After months of devastating military defeats, the humans were offering their enemies a chance to become partners rather than subjects. Dr. Chae-Young-woo activated another display showing the technological advances that had emerged from human-alien cooperation, medical breakthroughs that combined different species' biological knowledge, agricultural techniques that could feed entire star systems, energy systems that were clean, efficient, and virtually unlimited.